What's up, everybody? UFC 308 is in a few hours. It's super soon. Can't wait. I'm super excited for it. Um, I'm so pumped up for this event, man. Like, this is the card of the year in terms of, like, a couple of the guys I've been super pumped to see fight each other. I'm going to get into a breakdown, predict what I think is going to happen in the fights, and yeah. Here lately, we've been doing a lot better than we had been. So, the record has gotten a little cleaner. Here, let's see. Oh, we don't have to flip a coin anymore. There's no women's fights. We're at 57% now. We were doing god awful. We were like in the low 40%. So it's a big change. So we don't need the coin flip. Yeah, this is the fight we're looking at. This is the big one. The big one. Fucking, this is going to be an incredible fight. Robert Whittaker and Hamzat Chimaev. Can't wait. That's going to be super exciting. Anyways, let's start off with the early prelims. We're going to move right into Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal. Carlos Leal looks like he's on steroids based on, how the weigh-ins looked. Don't be surprised to see him come out very aggressive early and potentially finish Rinat. I assume Renat's too experienced, though. This dude's a fucking good fighter. I don't know much about Lil, but I do know he looked like he's saucing for this fight. It wouldn't surprise me. He's definitely untested in the sense of USADA, or not USADA, whatever drug test company they use now. But Rinat should win this fight. He's a better fighter most of the time, he should be. He had a tough out last time against Nicholas Dalby, but I think Dalby's showing up a little better than people thought he would. Like, I think he is a better fighter than we had originally thought he was, and Rinat just still won that fight, though. I'm gonna pick Fakhretdinov, however you want to say it. By decision. We'll move on to Bruno Silva versus Ismail Nurdiov. Something wants me to pick Bruno Silva. It's that this dude's on his second trip into the UFC, and he lost a couple fights in Brave FC while being gone, and then they just re-signed him. I don't know. To me, this is a 50-50 fight. It looks like Tapology thinks the same thing. It's just, I think I'm going to pick Bruno Silva to KO this guy, Ismail Nurdiev. Do I think it'll happen? I don't know. Probably not. It's just like a coin flip of a fight, though, because this dude, I just don't think he's that great. He lost to two dudes in Brave in a row, and then wins one fight and gets signed to the UFC. I don't know. Not too impressed by him. Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. This should be a boring fight in the sense of Basharat's probably just going to hold him against the cage or down against the floor. Basharat's just a mid fighter. Oh, well, he's a good fighter, but and Victor Hugo is a guy who got held down slightly by Pedro Falcao. Not a great look when we're going against Basharat. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Barnett. Alright, everything says Kennedy Nzechukwu, right? Like, you know, we got huge favorite. He's tall, long reach. Chris Barnett's just a fat, short guy. We're going with Chris Barnett to knock out Kennedy Nzechukwu. Just because I don't like Nzechukwu. I think he's a garbage fighter. He lost to Dustin Jacoby. And Chris Barnett is a garbage fighter too, but he's way funner. He was out there battling a hurricane, you know, taking it on. That's why he couldn't be at his last scheduled fight against Tafa, who he would have just taken down and beaten up. Anyways. Barnett's gonna knock this tall motherfucker out. You're welcome. Abus Magomedov versus Bruno Ferreira. This is gonna be a banger for as long as it lasts. I feel like if this isn't the if you know now you know bullshit fight that Dana always makes, then it's gonna be what? It'll probably be this one. This will be the if you know or if you don't know now you know, because these are just two dudes that knock people the hell out. Anyways, this should be that fight. It's gonna be a knockout. These dudes are gonna come for each other's heads. They're gonna try to knock each other the fuck out. It's gonna be great. Bruno Ferreira being the underdog's kind of wild. Abus is good, but his gas tank's very limited, and you know, Bruno Ferreira's ground game's pretty good. He's a judo. I'm pretty sure he's like a high level judoka. Not like not like extremely high level, but you know, high enough to understand it and how to stop some of the stuff that Abus is going to be using to slow the fight down if he tries to slow it down in the later rounds. I've got Bruno Ferreira winning by round 2 knockout, I think. Yeah. I don't know. It is a tough fight. But Bruno Ferreira should get it done. Although Abus did give Sean Strickland a pretty tough fight. He's a good level fighter, so I could see him winning that fight. Majtebek Oralbai versus Mateusz Rebecki, or Rebecki, however the fuck you say it. I don't know how to say it. It's one of those two. I've got the Caveman winning a decision. I think this will be a pretty solid fight. I think Diego Ferreira, man, that's a tough, like, it's not a tough loss to have. That's a good fighter to lose to. Diego Ferreira's a really good fighter. Every time he shows up, he just comes and blows out whoever the hell he's fighting, and then goes and vanishes for another year or two. Yeah, man. Rebecki's good. It's just I don't think he's as good as Majtebek Oralbai. I think Oralbai will just dominate him all over the ground, take him down, potentially land a big shot and knock him out. Don't be surprised if Rebecki lands some like good shots, hurts Oralbai, but I think this will turn into a grappling match. Jeff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. I think this is the last time that you're going to see Rafael dos Anjos in a meaningful fight. I think Jeff Neal's going to put some hands on him. I think he's going to beat him up early and then finish him in the second round. He's got some solid striking. Hits very hard, and he has learned the lesson from his last fight against Ian Gary, I believe it was. He said that he did not enjoy or didn't like that his clinch exchanges, he wasn't doing much during them, and I think he's really going to try to change that and fix a lot of the problems that he had. you would assume most of them would do so, but he actually addressed it. Fighters are stupid and they won't fix these problems they have for some reason. Yeah. I'm going to pick Jeff Neal by knockout. Probably should put a submission somewhere on this fight card. Maybe here. Maybe Victor Hugo gets one, but I don't know. Or not Victor Hugo. Maybe Basharat gets one. Doubtful for Kretinov. Is Kretinov won by? He's more of a decision guy. I don't know. Maybe this is the fight to actually sprinkle it in on, because I think this dude has won by submission before. This is gonna be one of those fights that's a banger for as long as it lasts. Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Kuraquata, I think is how John Anik said it. I'm genuinely not sure. Rafael, he's a pretty good fighter in the sense of undefeated, getting signed to the UFC. He was supposed to fight in Contender Series this year. He ended up not making his debut in Contender Series. I'm not really sure why. Ibo Aslan has already fought in Contender Series and in the UFC. He fought Trukali, or the Pleasure Man, whatever the hell his last name was. Beat him, but had some shots landed on him. If Rafael lands these same shots, maybe he knocks him out. I'm actually going to pick Rafael to win this fight by knockout in round 1. Let's do submission. Let's sprinkle a submission in. He's going to drop him and then submit him with an arm triangle. Glover Teixeira style back in the day. Shara Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. This is one of those bait fights, I think. Petrosyan could win it. It's just like if Ihor Potieria fought this guy. He could win it. He's not going to. Fighters are stupid and they don't do the thing they should do. Armen Petrosyan should win this fight. He should go in there, take down Shara, and just win a boring fight against the wall, against the cage, doing grappling like that and kneeing him, elbowing him, punching him, beating him up against the cage. Just making it a boring dog shit fight. But luckily, that's not what's going to happen. It's going to be a boring dog shit standing fight. Where you're going to watch Shara flick these little tappy punches and kicks that do 0 damage, and Petrosyan's just not going to press forward against him. He'll stand at range for some reason. Shara's going to win this fight by decision. That's just kind of how I think this fight's going to go. I think Petrosyan's just stupid, just like every other MMA fighter. Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. I've been wanting to pick Dan Ige for so long for this fight, but there's just something. I just cannot pick him. Looking at the weigh-ins, looking at everything, I don't know. He didn't have that same feel he had when he went and fought Diego Lopez, who is a much better fighter than Murphy, and Dan Ige almost won that fight. Arguably could have won the fight. It was on short notice. It was a surprise for Lopez to have to deal with. But you do have to think about that Dan Ige's a pretty damn good fighter. He may have also had that performance because there was no pressure on him. He was just stepping out and fighting, having fun. Now he's had a camp. He's taken damage. He's had to actually think about who he's fighting. Lerone Murphy did have a pretty tough fight with Barbosa in his last fight. Right, that was his last one. It was a complete unanimous decision, but you know what? I'm gonna pick Danny Ige to upset Lerone Murphy. The O has to go. It might be a weird one to say, but Danny Ige by decision. I think Ige's gonna outpoint him. Ige's a pretty good fighter. Now this fight, oh, I want to pick Alexander Rakic so bad because he's the best fighter in this division, but he has no finishing potential, and I just don't understand. He's massive for the weight class. He's probably the biggest fighter in the weight class. He's the most skilled one of the more skilled fighters in the weight class, like if not the most skilled. And he just has zero knockout power, zero threat. And I think Magomedov's going to treat him like that. He's going to walk forward, slipping punches, and just trying to land a big shot. I think he's going to... I think the fight will be slow-ish. But I just think Magomed Ankalaev is going to slowly wade in, and whether it's boring or not, eventually slide through and land one of these big hammers that he lands on all these guys. Rakic is going to do his little, like, goofy-legged, like, thing he does when he gets rocked, and then he's just going to get the shit beat out of him from there. Because Magomed Ankalaev is a good finisher. I think he'll then get the title shot against Alex Pereira, and that's going to be a really good fight to get to see. Might be coping thinking that, but Magomed is a really good fighter. And so is Rakic. Don't get me wrong. Like, Rakic is a really good fighter, and if he had knockout power, I would be picking him. But I think a lot of people would be picking Rakic if he had knockout power. He is a very good fighter. He very well could win this fight by stopping all of Ankalaev's takedowns and picking apart from range. I just don't think he's going to stay perfect. That's going to be a big problem for him. Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker. Okay, this is the co-main event of 308. This fight is awesome. I can't wait for this fight. I have been a Khamzat fan since he came into the UFC. I've loved this kid. I've thought he was going to be a future champion, and then all this weird shit started happening where, you know, he just can't make weight. He doesn't show up to fight. He can't fight in some instances. Or then he blitzes his opponent as he did with Kamaru Usman and then does nothing for the next 2 rounds, yet somehow wins the fight. I am not sure how this fight's going to go. I feel like it goes 2 ways. Either Khamzat takes him down and we see the Khamzat of old, or Robert Whittaker stops the takedowns and like early quickly and is trying to actually pressure Khamzat. I know that's not typically Rob's style, but I think he's trying to bring a new style to fight Khamzat, to fight these Dagestani wrestlers or grapplers that are well-rounded in general. I think he's going to try to pressure him, stop the takedowns, like force him to shoot ugly takedowns So Hamzat will shoot from really far away. So you should be shooting for takedowns when you can touch an opponent, like when you can reach out and put your hand on them. But Hamzat sometimes will shoot from like 6-8 feet out, and because he's so fucking athletic, he'll get the takedown anyways. I don't think he can do that against Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker was stopping Yoel Romero from taking him down pretty often. The difference is Yoel did get him down, and the difference between him and Hamzat is the control. Yoel was a freestyle wrestler. The control level is much different. I assume Robert Whittaker is actually a smart fighter and trains for worst case scenario and has trained with having people on his back and already locked into rear naked chokes, but I'm just not sure if that's enough. I don't know if that's enough at this point. Rob takes losses when he shouldn't. Or not when he shouldn't, in big moments. Rob takes losses in big moments. And I just think this is another one of those times. I think Chimaev is also one of those guys who can time Rob's blitz. Several people have done it at this point. Darren Till with the elbow. Drickus with the jab as he was coming in. Hamzat likes to stand southpaw and he did use that exact jab to knock down Gilbert Burns, if I'm not mistaken. That could play a factor in this fight. I'm going to pick Hamzat to finish Robert Whittaker. I don't want it to happen. Robert Whittaker is one of my favorite fighters as well. I've had a hard time picking this fight. I've been so back and forth because I think if it gets past the second round, this fight looks really interesting, especially for Robert Whittaker. It's going to start looking a lot better for him. But I do think it ends in the second round by TKO. I think Chimaev will start landing big shots on the ground. And if he does not submit Rob, he's going to try to TKO him. I actually am going to switch to submission, though. I think he's going to submit Rob. I think his ground game is going to really get shown here. Next, we move to Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. This fight is going to be one of those fights where you legitimately cannot help but sit on the edge of your seat the entire time it's happening. At literally any moment, Topuria can shut Max off. And that's something that we don't get to see often. Justin Gaethje was another one of those guys that at any moment, if he landed the right shot, could turn off Max Holloway entirely. It's a super interesting aspect. Topuria is a very great fighter. Like, his leg kicks, his jab, his boxing, his grappling are all very, very good. He seems like the prototype of what is supposed to be the future fighters, where you can see the styles when, like, what they're using specifically. Like, he looks like a professional in that sport using that style, but in MMA, and also being able to shift into wrestling and other stuff like that, like being able to take his boxing stance and style and just, like, use it for takedown defense, and also to land big shots while stopping takedowns. People are thinking that Max is going to potentially land some big shots while Ilia tries to land clean shots, while Ilia tries to land these big, massive overhand rights and stuff. And I can see that happening, but Ilia likes to move forward and do these things. Like, he likes to cut angles while doing so, and I feel like Max is gonna have to be a little more defensive. I feel like he's gonna have to fight more of like how Volk fights, like the Volk game plan that Volk uses in almost every fight. It's very similar to Israel Adesanya of jab, circle, leg kick, but it's just a little different, I guess. I think that would play well. Head kicks are going to be a big factor in this fight for Max. If he puts some significant force, I don't like how Max normally throws his head kicks. He's more of a just like flip it up, and if it hits you, it's going to just like smack you hard. You're gonna get buzzed by it, but not. He's not going to sleep you with a head kick typically. I want Max to throw full force head kicks in this fight. When he steps in, like when he's throwing head kicks, he needs to put them as hard as he can up. Because Topuria he's had head kicks landed on him. And Max is a guy who, if he just like puts some more force into some of his shots, he can knock you out. And it is why his cardio is so incredible. And it's what makes this fight so freaking tough to pick, man. I'm going to have to pick the guy that has more ways to win the fight. I think if things go badly for Ilia on the feet, he can switch to grappling, which a lot of people are starting to point out. But it is a real thing. He has some very good grappling. His wrestling is pretty damn good too. And if he doesn't, it's the same kind of thing as it was with Hamzat. If he doesn't finish Max in the first 2 rounds, this fight gets really interesting. Really interesting. Because Max's pace does not slow. And Ilia hasn't shown that his gas tank is incredible. He went 5 rounds with Josh Emmett, but he was controlling the pace. And it is so much different when you're fighting Max Holloway. I think the things that are going to be keys for Ilia are going to be his jab. I think keys for Max will be head kicks, teeps, and footwork. Being able to circle away and not get backed straight up. If he backs straight up against Ilia Topuria, he is making a massive, massive mistake. And he will pay for that. Ilia will back him to the cage, circle off, left hook to the body, and then comes the overhand right, and he will sleep Max if that happens. If he keeps doing that over and over, if he backs up over and over, he will get caught with those punches. Max does a very good job of rolling with punches and taking steam off of them, but that's why Ilia mixes to the body, head. He tries to land in different spots. I think Ilia gets it done. I don't know that he's the first guy to ever knock out Max. That is a tough thing to call, to say he will be the first one to do it, especially when guys like Justin Gaethje couldn't, when Dustin Poirier couldn't. Dustin Poirier landed some hard shots, literally were spinning Max's head around, and he got rocked a couple times, but that was it. Anyways, I'll move on to who I'm picking. I'm gonna pick Ilia. I'm gonna pick him by decision. I think his jab will be enough to keep Max off of him. Max does struggle with shorter guys that have a powerful, strong jab. Volk, Ilia. Frankie had a decent jab, but it's why I would argue Max easier won that fight. Or he won the Frankie fight easier than the Volk fights were for him. I guess a bad example would be Jose Aldo was shorter and had a good jab, but Jose Aldo was more of a stationary target at the time, whereas Frankie Volk move. He struggled more against Frankie, but he won the fight clearly. Volk was just more of a good jab. Topuria has a great jab as well. I'm gonna pick Topuria to win by decision. That's gonna be it for my picks. I hope you guys enjoy the fights. They are going to be awesome. At least the main and co-main event will be. I could see how this card could be kind of mid otherwise. This should be a banger though, hopefully. Anyways, like and subscribe. See you guys after the fights at some point, and have fun.